think is very important, is that they would move children's mental health from there and put it back in with the Ministry of Health, where there would be guaranteed increases in funding. And our party is committed in our platform through Changebook over the next 4 years, the next term of the government, to increase spending under healthcare by a further $6 billion over and above what's being spent today.
We've recently invested $257 million in children's mental health. And in June, we announced a strategy that saw collaboration between the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Child and Youth Services to develop a comprehensive mental health addiction strategy. So what does that mean in practice? Because it's all well and good to put money, but we also need to appreciate and understand that we need to implement this money, and we need to stand up for our community to be sure that that money arrives in the community that needs it the most. So we're talking about putting nurses and mental health workers in our schools to reach almost 9,000 kids that need that care. We're talking about putting mental health workers on campuses in universities and colleges to help kids through the transition, because these are trigger points where kids are often very vulnerable when they're out of their community and they don't have the supports that they generally have. We're developing a strategy to work with Aboriginal care workers to develop culturally specific programming for kids who are suffering. And we also need to be cognizant of the fact that mental health issues differ from community to community, culture to culture. We are expanding our telepsychiatry program to reach those kids in remote and rural areas.
If you see me haggard and tired more than I usually am, it's because I'm prepared to meet people 24 hours a day, and I've done it in the past. I remember the last meeting we had here, I was almost passing out because I did that. I didn't sleep the whole night before and the day, and that was the reason.
What is a libertarian? And well, it definitely is not a liberal. Libertarians believe that each one of us is the owner of his or her life, and you should be free to do with your life and your property as you see fit, provided you respect the same rights for the lives and properties of others. We also believe the government has no legitimate right to aggress against those who have not harmed anybody else, even when the government apparatus is controlled by democratically elected leaders. Libertarians want to end all impositions of the government violating these principles of self-ownership and non-aggression. Fundamentally, government is an institution which has a monopoly on the exercise of legal force within a specific jurisdiction, for us, the province of Ontario. As such, Libertarians believe the government must be limited to self-defense functions on behalf of its citizens, an objective set of laws and courts, and a police force to stop violent criminal activity. Government must be restrained against its inherent tendency to extend the exercise of its powers beyond just that. Libertarians view government as an inherently dangerous and mostly unnecessary institution.
About a year ago, I sat on this very stage, probably in this exact spot, with a microphone in my hand, and spoke about one of my own children's plight. Rejecting the quick fix to prescribe a pill after minimal consultation, my wife and I sought other venues to address some concerns. In that scenario, then sharing it on the stage, began a journey that I'm currently on. Not to overstate a fact, but I'm now a board member of St. Clair Child and Youth Services. But that by no means makes me the mental health candidate. It does mean that in my commitment to advocate for the need to improve services, I'm on a learning path surrounded by people who have also taken this cause. My eyes have been opened on a number of occasions.
Recently, a group came together seeking changes and or implementation to family law. Each party is aware of this group's concerns, and we want to know what each candidate is doing or will do to make family law more cost-effective, timely, and non-adversarial, because we believe that family breakdown not only affects parents, but children as well.
We're talking about family law reform, so this is something that's happened province-wide. So the reforms have been made, the changes in the policy have been legislated. What's happening in Sarnia Lambton is the changes aren't there. We're not seeing the outcome that was desired by the Ministry of the Attorney General's office and throughout the policy environment. And that's really what being an MPP is all about. Every community is different. We've addressed this through all of our debates, and we understand this as people who are community leaders and are looking to lead in our community. So when you roll out a policy or legislation, not every community is going to have the uptake as their neighboring community. So it's the responsibility of your member of provincial parliament to make sure that the changes that need to be made in Sarnia Lambton are there, and so that the families here benefit from a policy change.
It appears to me that the legal profession, sorry I'm saying that, but that's what I feel, hijacked the whole process, and it's not necessary. It can be resolved in civilized manner without huge financial commitments by all the parties.
Anna, to be honest, and not to cop out, I'm really not aware of your organization, so I won't disrespect you by
Spends any time looking at the website, you'll see that people are going bankrupt for something that other people are, proud to say that they've dealt with in 15 minutes. If mediation is the solution, it should be offered here. It's not, or it is, but nobody knows how to access it.
Wait lists and wait times for rehabilitation services puts a lot of pressure on families. What would your party do to reduce the amount of time families need to wait?
We look at the comprehensive mental health strategy that this government released in June, and that does exactly that. So it starts to chip away at those wait times by giving parents the resources to find community care in their community. I can't stress enough, you don't want to have a child being ripped out of their home and put them into group care. Kids, there's a stigma that surrounds mental health. So very often, by the time that that it manifests and the parents have figured out that there's something going on, it's already been going on for quite a long time. So we look at the strategies that we need to employ to start bringing down those wait times so that the kids that need that acute long-term care have access to those acute beds in residential treatment facilities. So that means putting crisis care workers in the community agencies, putting them in the schools, having access to parents by phone, by internet.
By the time people learn to navigate the system and work their way through all the different ministries, one department is responsible for this, and if you turn 18, all of a sudden you're no longer considered a child, and there's a different group has to look after you. So that's one of the main recommendations that come out of the select committee, that they put mental health services back with the Ministry of Health, where they will have the budget. It'd be similar to, I think, like Cancer Care Ontario, where you have one organization that's responsible for the integration and the coordination of service.
There's all these different ministries and agencies, and they do not know where to go. And I work with government in a number of different ways, and I find that they often do not communicate very well between them. So I think the question is, how would you break down some of the barriers between those different ministries and ensure that instead of, as the lady said, instead of spending time putting people onto lists and having a process, that we actually get treatment achieved?
By making children's mental health as a whole, part of the mental health budget, because it is a health issue. If it's treated as a health issue, that'll take away that stigma, and it'll also, some people seem to think are associated with that. And if we make it part of the health budget, then it's just like treating diabetes, cancer, and other health issues. And it'll give it the importance it needs, and it'll get the government, the bureaucrats, and we're still going to need some, but it'll get the government, the bureaucrats centered around those children and youth and their parents in need. Thank you.
If we wait to treat people with mental health issues until they manifest or end up in the healthcare system, that means in the hospital, we are too late. So we have to focus on the community. We have to focus on the identification and the assessment of children as they grow into adults, and how we identify and get the treatment that they need. So mental health needs to become on par with physical health. I have always wondered, every year we go for a physical and we visit our doctor, why don't we have the equivalent in a mental? Why do we not evaluate ourselves yearly and do a check-in?
Any of you wish to share if you've personally been affected by mental health issues in your circle of close family or friends?
I've been to counseling. I've suffered from depression. I've had family members who have suffered from various things too that are affected by mental health issues. So I've seen it run deep. I certainly am not going to expose anybody else who's related to me and their concerns.
No, and I don't mean any personal details.
Sure.
Just,
But I don't mind sharing. I've received help. And that's one of my hopeful stories. Absolutely.
Personal issue, girl I went to school with when I was in high school, which I actually, just after I graduated, I found out that she had attempted suicide right behind the counselor's office. So the counselor's trained to see this, sitting in their office, and this girl's in the stairwell next to them. So yeah, I've seen what it can do.
I have a brother, younger brother, who has anxiety disorders and manic depressive. I love him, do what I can for him. I try to understand. I've been a landlord in this community for 30 years, and I've dealt with a lot of adults with mental problems, manic depressive, schizophrenia, multiple personal disorders, depression, the whole gamut. I've worked with them and their families. From the private point of view, not much help out there. So I'm not saying there's not a need, I'm just wary of the economic equation.
I have many friends with mental health issues. They're members of my social circles, and I engage them in my decision-making process, in public service. They get involved in my campaigns, some of them even vote.
I personally worked in a group home for a year as both part-time and full-time doing therapeutic crisis intervention. And I can't tell you how it changed my entire outlook on where we need to go with mental health funding and how we need to increase and break down those barriers. And it was probably one of the most humbling experiences of my life. And I worked with particularly females. And I personally, through the research that I did as a student, researching conflict resolution for at-risk youth, services do need to be gender appropriate. And that's something that I strongly believe in as somebody who worked in a group care facility with young women. So, you know, on a personal level, I think we also sometimes don't understand that anxiety, certain personality disorders, those are mental health issues. And we often carry on and function in our daily routines without ever recognizing that these are things that we might be able to get help in. And I think in the workplace, it's becoming an increasing issue where we're not putting a lot of resources. So, you know, personally, I'm very passionate about these issues as somebody who's worked in the field, someone who has family members who have suffered, and then somebody who's, you know, I think anybody in this room could think about their family and circle of friends and go, yeah, you know, we've all been touched by this.
Before I got elected, I worked in industry, and I had the opportunity and the privilege of working with a number of individuals who we came to find out had issues, mental health issues, and they opened up. We had some of these group sessions. It was one of the most surprising. It was one of these, I forget what we called them, where you kind of went around the table, and this one individual opened up, and the rest of us were, you know, because he was one of the most bubbly kind of individuals in the group. Lots of fun, great worker. We used to call him the weekend warrior, and now, you know, come to find out, we understood why he acted out the way he did. Unfortunately, he's not with us now, and I think it was because of some of that. And I'll tell you, just to go back to the wait list, I took the phone message off the phone at work, and it was one of the agencies that was going to work with him. It was too late. It was like on the Monday. He was calling them on the Thursday or Friday before, and you know, they weren't available. And it was an odd feeling when I took that message off the machine. You know, they were calling him. You know, would have made a difference? I don't know. If we can find billions of dollars for, you know, stealth bombers and munitions, and if we can find billions of dollars to build wind turbines and things like this, green energy is great, but I think that we can find some of that money and put it towards health care, and especially children and adult mental health care. Thank you.